The heart of Mordor. Middle-earth campaign book. This is as much of an adventure module as it is a source book, and one of the only campaign books that they put out with the intentions of actually having the GM run a significant campaign in here. And it could either be ran from the perspective of a goodly group of adventurers sent here to whatever, and or a dark, evil, whatever group of people who are working for the lieutenants and or Sauron, and so on and so forth. So what it covers is the central section of Mordor, and to some degree the Nirn, or the Sea of Nirn, the land surrounding Nirn, which is more or less the breadbasket for Mordor. The only thing, it touches on Mordor itself, but not in extreme detail. What we're dealing here is with, like I said, the centerpiece. I'll read it. 1,000 years in the middle of the west stood guard of the Black Land, ever vigilant to prevent the return of Sauron's might. The great plague broke that watch. And evil stirs in the east of the mountains of the shadow. Torchlight glares from the blah, 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 blah. Okay. Mount Doom dominates the middle of Gorgoroth. Everybody knows about Mount Doom. And what it doesn't know about is there's a number of citadels and cities that actually populate the area, which you would think, considering how entirely hostile the Plain of Fire is, and Gorgoroth in general, and the Valley of Adun, A-D-U-N, however you want to pronounce it. You wouldn't think that would be true. But if you look at it as being basically the heart and capital of the evil would-be empire of the Dark Lord, it's not unreasonable. Taking into account too just how influential Sauron and his lieutenant, and via his lieutenants, the Nazgul and others, are in the east and the south of Middle Earth, that having the means to support them financially and through logistics such as food needs, it's not impossible. They can bring a lot of foodstuffs up through the southern half of Mordor and into the center of the heart to keep the armies fed. We have one principal city in here, and they go into a little bit of detail on it and its history. There's a number of fortresses. Some were made by the Dark Lord's minions, and sadly or ironically, a lot of the more stronger ones were built by Gondor and the men in the west, and that was to keep watch over Mordor after the defeat of Sauron and his armies at the Battle of Dagorland, when, or however you want to put it, the one ring was cut from his fingers, blah, blah, blah. You all know the story. So the Towers of Teeth being an example, Sir Thungol, that's the one where that guards the pass to the Spider Pass, or where Shelob's lair is at. And then there's Darthang, which lays somewhat in the inner fence of Mordor, if you will, on the inside of the Ash Mountains. That one was one that Frodo and Samwise passed by at a distance and found it forbidding, and blah, blah, blah. The foundations and outer walls of that castle was built by an eccentric Gondorian when the House of Stewarts decided, or I think it was the House of Stewarts, it might have been one of the Gondorian kings, decided it was just too deep in Mordor to be cost effective, let alone keep supplied and manned. So this rich dude decided to finish the project, got it halfway done, got abandoned, and then eventually was taken over and finished by Sauron's servants. Makes for a very strong fortification. None of it ever gets tested, because we know that Aragorn leads the middle of the west to the front gates of Mordor, to the Towers of Teeth, and the Morannon Gate. Demands that Sauron come forward. The battle's fought, even though they're grossly outnumbered, and it was just a ruse to buy time, allow Frodo to destroy the ring, which he actually failed at doing. So, the nature of this stuff. What are you going to do? The interior of the book itself, it gives you a lot of details on these citadels, fortifications, but also quite a few of the senior lieutenants, and surprisingly enough, they're not all orcs and undead. There's actually a twisted elf here, and some humans, of course. Like here, this is a picture of one of the lieutenants. Seldering was born in Gondolin in the latter years of the First Age. His father was an old myther and one of the mastersmiths of the city. He became under the sway of Sauron when Sauron was crafting the rings, and followed his master, so to speak, and has ever since. We got the Lords of Mordor, the Mouth of Sauron, which is a character that, other than the video games and the book, in the movie they cut him out. No, they had him in the movie, but most people didn't understand what the heck he was. And this does a much better job of giving you more backstory than anywhere else in that particular individual. And of course, various nasty locations. We also got some in-depth. Oh, where'd that go? I want to show you that one because I thought, yeah, some of you guys get a kick out of that one, right? You've got the breakdown of the Nazgul, the individuals, Camel, the Easterling, Dwarf, blah blah blah, the Witch King, all those stats that you need to know about this guy. Camel, the Easterling, Dwarf, I said that. Equerel, blah blah, their history and so on. Actually, one of the 9 ring wraiths was a woman. That's an interesting twist. That now. It's included in here, also the stats for Sauron and most of his lieutenants, but those are also duplicated in the Immortals book. I believe there's 3 compendiums that give all the famous and infamous people a bio, if you will. Sauron himself, his history, what he was doing, when he was doing it, a breakdown of it, Orcish confederations, politics of war, politics of power, the other races of Mordor, the dwarves and the elves, orc tribes, other animals, plants, peoples and cultures, blah blah blah. There's a chapter in here talking about Shelob and some of her antiques and so on and so forth. A breakdown of Mount Doom itself, including some cutaways and the direct areas around it, the Crack of Doom, Great Gate, the Stone of Sorrow, the Wall, the High Black Fort, or Thammerost, Barad-dûr, of course. Although I think they were intending to come back and add a couple of those to the Middle-earth Fortresses of Middle-earth series, but it never panned out, not to the way that they intended. The Mines of Agrath, Orc encampments, suggested adventures while they laid siege, the Gondorian occupation, War of the Ring, during the 4th Age, Siege of Barad-dûr, the 2nd Age before the Fall of Nurmur, after the Fall of Nurmur, Siege of Barad-dûr, 3rd Age Gondorian occupation, the Return of Evil, War of the Ring, 4th Age, suggested adventures, Expedition of Mount Doom, Rescue at Kirk Gargan, Orcs of the Leaping Flame, Escape from the Orodruin Mines, the Mystery Brandwith, Tias Terror. You know, the Escape from the Orodruin Mines is probably the only suggestion I took out of here and made useful, or made an attempt to make something with it, because I think it had an opportunity to give my players at the time, who were coming quite jaded at how many different things I had done for the typical beginning of an adventure. Oh, you all meet in a bar, we're all going to the tavern, we're all going to do this, we're all going to do that, blah blah blah, or you all live in this village, blah blah blah, or this guy brought you together, blah blah blah. And even the heavily cliched one that I actually am not favorite of anymore, where some massive power bored magician, bored god, whatever, throws you all into a blind dungeon where you just have to kind of get together and what have you. Now what would be more interesting in that kind of scenario would be to have one where they throw you in there where it's more like survival. Who gets voted off the island first kind of thing. Just saying. But Gorgoroth has a lot of good stuff in there, and having that adventure start out with nobody, basically nothing but rags on your back and a mistaken opportunity to get out of a dungeon and find yourself in the middle of very hostile territory and having to use your wits and your skill set more than your combat abilities. It was a different take on things, and I think everybody seemed to quite enjoy it. I don't remember hearing too many complaints about it, and yes, I get my share of complaints sometimes. There you go. Hey, what do you know? A little over 10 minutes.